Welcome back to my channel, Famous and Fabulous. The more I played it, the more I realized it's not different enough. It's not just about sounding different and feeling different. It's about making me want to sing in a different way too. Keith Urban is making big headlines in music. He went from being a smooth, safe and normal country singer to becoming almost someone you wouldn't recognize. A divorce, a totally new group of people helping him, a new sound, and he's being really cold and not budging on anything. Every choice he's made lately shows he doesn't want to go back, and he doesn't feel like he needs to explain anything. This is a total change, and everyone can see it happening. Keith Urban officially ended his almost 20-year relationship with Nicole Kidman by doing things that made it super clear. The divorce happened at the end of September, but it seems like he decided way before that. Urban moved out of the house that Kidman and her two daughters lived in, and he didn't say anything about this huge change in his life. When Keith Urban showed up at his first concert after the divorce news came out, he wasn't wearing his wedding ring. On stage, one of the songs that was all about Kidman, called The Fighter, was completely gone from his list of songs to play, even though it used to be a big part of most shows. When he sang You'll Think of Me, he changed the words from a normal version to something that showed how he felt about his ex-wife. The whole concert that day was the same, except all the parts connected to Kidman just weren't there anymore. This was something he planned, not just something he did because he was upset. There's no middle ground. This is how I'm going to do things now, someone close to Keith Urban told reporters right after. The changes weren't quiet or random. They were all connected like steps in a plan he already had. On his social media, Urban deleted every post with Kidman in it, even ones that didn't look personal. No new updates, no explanations, and no responses to people. Everything he did on social media went in the same direction. No talking, just doing things and moving on. His marriage to Nicole Kidman didn't just end. It was a clear and on-purpose turning point. And it happened at the same time as a bunch of other changes. An article in a big music magazine said Keith Urban is not calm and balanced anymore. He's breaking down all the old walls and rebuilding everything from the start. This isn't just words. It actually shows how Keith Urban is handling every part of his life right now. Shortly after the divorce was official, more things changed on his team. Bands he'd been with for years, including guys he was super close to, started leaving. These changes weren't accidents, and they didn't happen late. Instead, Keith Urban made all the decisions at the exact same time he was leaving the past behind. A music producer who worked with Keith Urban on 3 recent albums says it simply: he doesn't want to bring anything old into what comes next. How Keith Urban got rid of Kidman, got rid of what used to be a perfect marriage, and rebuilt his entire live show in just a few weeks is not just a response to change. It's a bunch of actions that show an artist going a different way and not dragging anything from before with him. He didn't make any long speeches or share personal stuff when he came back on stage. He just showed up as a performer. But his look, his words, and his band had all changed. Every small thing meant something. From what songs he picked, to what he wore, to how far away he stayed from personal topics. The way Keith Urban handled all this felt like he was erasing an old computer program and putting in a brand new one, said a music expert from Rolling Stone. His marriage to Nicole Kidman wasn't shown through feelings or words. It was shown through actions, a new look, and choices that had a plan behind them. From now on, Keith Urban has no connection in his image, music, or words to a relationship that had been his whole life for almost 20 years. Keith Urban's next move started right after that and involved specific actions. He got rid of people who'd been helping him for a long time and who had built every show big and small throughout his whole career. He removed people who worked with him for years. After his marriage ended, Keith Urban began to make huge changes in how he worked. The band that had been with him for many years was almost completely replaced. The most famous person who left was Jerry Flowers, the bass player and band leader. Flowers had been with Urban since the very beginning of his time in American music, showing up with him in almost every big tour, music project, and TV show. When he stopped working with someone he'd worked with for so long, there was no public announcement, no thank yous on social media, or anything like that. The change wasn't just about one person. Other band members left too. Keith Urban didn't throw a goodbye party, make a statement saying why, or answer what people were saying. Everything was done quietly and firmly at the same exact time he was doing his first shows with the new band. The new people were younger and not as famous. They'd never played with Urban before. They just joined without any big introduction. Someone who knows the music business confirmed that Keith Urban himself decided to change the whole band, and nobody from outside told him to do it. He wanted to make a new sound, new energy, and totally stop any connection to what came before. It wasn't because people didn't get along or had problems at work. He just wanted a total refresh of both how he looks and how his music sounds. At the time of the change, none of the old band members said anything, and Keith Urban didn't mention anyone's name in shows after that. On stage, you can easily see the change. The way the band members talk to each other and how the instruments work together is different. The old ways of playing things have changed. The new band plays more modern stuff and less old-style country. The loudness, the speed, and how the instruments fit together have all changed a ton. This shows that Keith Urban wants to change not just the people, but also how people feel when they hear his music. Rolling Stone magazine said, Keith Urban getting rid of almost his whole team that's been with him forever is not something you see a lot from a guy who's already super successful, but it's clear he doesn't want to keep anything from his old self. This shows how willing Urban is to change even the things that were thought to be the most important parts of his career. Keith Urban didn't just change the people. He also remade the whole tech side of his tours. The sound system, the lights, and the stage setup were all changed to work with the new band. Practice and rehearsals were done in private, with nobody from the outside knowing anything. When Keith Urban finally showed up in front of people with his new team, everything was already ready. He walked out on stage like nothing was different. But fans who'd been there a long time could easily hear and see the difference, from the sound to the way he moved and talked on stage. There's no sign that Keith Urban will ever work with his old teammates again. Songs that used to be about those guys have slowly disappeared from his song list, or are being played totally differently. Some people in the music world said this is one of the biggest total changes anyone's ever seen from a guy who's at the top of his game. Even though he never officially said it, Urban's actions have shown everyone that he wants to completely change everything and start fresh his own way. After getting his team organized, Keith Urban turned to the most important thing, changing his sound. The next step wasn't just to make his live shows different, but to make a sound that really showed who he was right now. Right after he changed his band, Keith Urban started to rebuild how his music sounds in a totally different direction. The new songs on his album called High don't have that old country feeling anymore. The way he writes words, picks topics, sounds, and how songs are built all show he's breaking away from the old way of doing things. This album was a big marker that showed Keith Urban was going into a new time with his own personal style and without just copying what people liked before. In a song called Straight Line, Keith Urban uses simple pictures to show how bored and lost he feels in groups and rules he'd been stuck in for so long. The song's melody isn't hard, but how it's made is using computers and electronics. The beat is fast, making it feel modern and kind of heavy. This is one of the first songs he's ever done that sounds almost nothing like country songs. From the words to the way he sings, it shows he's not using the same tricks that made him famous. During an interview backstage while he was promoting his new album, Keith Urban said it plain and simple. This time, I don't have to make anybody happy. I do it how I want. There was no hidden meaning. He was clearly saying he's going his own way now, and not using old tricks to be successful. Love is Hard keeps going that same direction. Instead of happy love songs like he's had on lots of other albums, this song shows love as mean, straight, and kind of bitter. When Keith Urban sings this on stage, he doesn't talk to the crowd much. Instead, he uses dim lights and nothing to look at. He focuses on singing, which shows he wants to be less about entertaining and more about just music. The album High doesn't have any big famous country artists on it, which is weird because his old projects had lots of famous names. This time, Keith Urban only worked with less famous producers, mostly young people who are trying new kinds of music. This shows he wants to get away from places he knows and rebuild everything from scratch. The songs throughout the album are made in a modern way, using lots of computer sounds layered on top, simple background music, and changing speeds that are different from the normal country radio song structure. The beats are faster and harder, but not happy, but more thoughtful, showing a tight and kind of lonely feeling. Songs like Break the Pattern and Under My Name haven't been officially made into music videos or put out as singles, but he picked them to play at lots of recent shows. This shows that Keith Urban is choosing music that shows what he's trying to do, instead of picking songs that are popular or easy to sing along with. His song list for the new tour has also been totally changed. Lots of his old hits that made him famous aren't being played anymore, and new, more personal songs are taking their place. This change makes the live shows feel totally different. It's not about getting the crowd excited or making cool effects anymore, but about showing real feelings in a real, clear, and solid way. After changing all his music, Keith Urban started to look at his own past. But instead of talking about it, he decided to totally split away from the old image that came with the hardest times in his life. Keith Urban has talked openly about his old problems with drinking and using drugs, a time that messed up his career and made his life go crazy. But starting in 2025, he shows signs that he doesn't want people to connect him to that story anymore. He won't talk about the past, he won't do interviews, and the way he looks has changed. All this clearly shows that Keith Urban wants to take all the details of his old life out of his new path. When Urban went to the hospital in 2006, the news media talked all about it like it was the moment things got better. At that time, Nicole Kidman got him to go to a place to help him fix his drinking and drug problems, which people thought helped him get over his bad addiction. After he got better, Keith Urban said nice things about his wife's choice, saying it was the thing that let him rebuild his life. But he hasn't talked like that in the last 2 years. In interviews, when people ask him about getting better or his old problems, Keith Urban says no, or just says, "That's all behind me now." The details that used to help him talk about his life are gone. He doesn't do programs about fixing addiction problems. He doesn't speak at meetings, community events, or programs to talk about his own life like he used to. Since 2023, Keith Urban has stopped mentioning the places that helped him when he was getting better. All the stuff about that topic has also been erased from social media and official websites. In the new music he's put out, there are no songs about getting over hard times or big life events. Instead, there are songs about how he feels right now, what he thinks, and how he's changed his mind. Someone who used to be on Keith Urban's team said he wanted to completely stop people seeing him as a guy who used to do drugs. He wanted people to see him as an artist with his own talent, not someone who needs a crazy past or special story to make people like him. This is clearly shown in his new image. No big stories about getting better, but instead he's firm, clear, and not stuck to any old stories. In the past, lots of programs asked Keith Urban to come talk about fixing addiction for people trying to get better. But in the last 2 years, he said no to all of them because he wants to focus on his job. He also doesn't do nice things anymore to help people fix their brains or help people with addiction problems. Even though he did this stuff for many years, he never officially said why he stopped. But the way news people cover him and how he wants to look show that Keith Urban is trying to get away from a time that people used to think was a big part of who he is. No more showing up to talk about his own sad stories about beating hard times. No more songs about coming back from doing bad. As he broke away from his old past, Keith Urban kept making stronger walls between his personal life and his work life. From here, rebuilding his image went past just his music and who helps him to how he shows himself to news people and regular folks. As he's totally redoing his image and his life direction, Keith Urban has also changed how he works with the news and media. In recent years, he's made clearer limits with reporters and stopped sharing about his private life. Everything he does away from the stage is watched closely. Interviews that he used to do all the time don't show up on big TV shows anymore. Urban almost never says yes to talk shows or fun programs if it's not exactly about his new music. News places that have worked with him for years have also stopped getting answers to interview asks. Keith Urban's people say the same thing. Only answer about new music. Questions about his private life, people he knows, or what he thinks aren't part of what they'll talk about. The way Keith Urban acts on stage also shows change. In recent shows, he doesn't talk to the crowd as much. He doesn't share personal stuff anymore and doesn't spend as much time showing his feelings like he used to. The show is kept short for talking, with everything focused on the music. He doesn't even say a lot before songs like he used to. The goal is clear. Put a wall between the artist and people watching so nobody gets into his private business. Keith Urban keeps his social media pretty empty. Posts are about tour dates, new music, or behind-the-scenes photos with nothing personal. Happy moments with family or friends are gone. Posts about feelings, opinions about big world stuff, or anything like that are not on his real accounts. One time that people talked about was a radio interview where Urban stopped talking when the host asked how he felt seeing Nicole Kidman in a close-up romantic moment in a movie. Urban didn't explain much, just ended the interview and left. Since then, people know him as one of the few artists who will say no to stuff that feels like people are looking too much at his life, no matter what. At big parties and events, Keith Urban doesn't show up with famous family or friends like he used to. He doesn't walk red carpets with his family, doesn't go to big movie events, and doesn't let news people see behind the scenes with his private life anymore. Even when people see him at shows or backstage, he's always alone or just with his manager and helper. The way Keith Urban keeps his personal stuff secret makes it almost impossible to find out about his life outside of music. Even big changes like moving to a new house, changing where he lives, or new relationships don't show up on any of his official pages. Keith Urban is on a totally new path, clearer, tougher, and doesn't look back anymore.